Madam President, I ask that proceedings under the quorum call be vitiated.
Without objection.
Madam President, I come to the floor today to recognize the critical moment that is before us as a country. We have an opportunity to make real progress on bipartisan gun reforms that will help keep our communities safer while respecting our treasured Second Amendment rights. America's epidemic of gun violence continues to devastate communities and families across our nation. Last month, in just August alone, mass shootings in El Paso, in Dayton, and Odessa claimed the lives of more than 50 innocent Americans. And meanwhile, individual Americans fall victim to gun violence every single day. Whether through suicide or through homicide, they take far too many lives far too early. Just this past weekend, 4 Delawareans in my hometown were shot. And in 2017, up and down my home state, 111 Delawareans were killed by firearms. Guns are now the third leading cause of death for Delaware's children under age 17. Folks, these are not just numbers. Each gun death is a son or daughter, a neighbor, a congregation member, a friend. In a recent meeting in my office in Wilmington with Moms Demand Action, I listened to young parents who are confronting for the first time the reality of active shooter drills in schools as they've sent their child to school for the first time and had them come home asking questions about why we as parents cannot do more to keep them safe in school. Viewing this ongoing crisis through the eyes of our children, those who are told to be quiet, to hide in a closet, to wait out a moment of sheer terror, is a reminder that our children are scared, our families are scared, our neighbors are scared, and we can and must do more to address this epidemic. And some of the most crucial steps we can take must be taken here at the federal level. But to make progress, the party that controls this body and this floor has to join hands with those of us in my party willing to work across the aisle in a responsible way and lead. And frankly, more than anything else, as has been said by the Republican Majority Leader, President Trump needs to take a clear and firm position and stick to it. The American people deserve no less. If this body is going to take up and pass gun control legislation, it will require our president to lead. I think bringing bipartisan bills to the floor here for a vote is a great place to start, and I wanted to talk for a few minutes about one of those bills that I introduced with Republican Senator Pat Toomey of the neighboring state of Pennsylvania. It's called the NICS Denial Notification Act, and it has a simple objective, which is that when someone prohibited by law from owning a weapon, someone who's a convicted felon or who's been adjudicated mentally ill, goes into a firearm dealer, fills out the background check form, but lies on it and says they are able to buy a gun, and they get denied. They get turned down once that NICS background check is run. What do you think happens with that information? Where does the information that a convicted felon is trying to buy a weapon go once they've been denied? Well, in my home state, nowhere. In 34 states, nowhere. In states across the country, not just Delaware, New York, Kentucky, Texas, local law enforcement may never learn about a convicted felon who is actively trying to buy a gun and often committing another offense by lying about it in that attempt. Our bill would fix that. It requires federal authorities to alert state law enforcement of any background check denial so state authorities can decide whether to investigate or prosecute or go and pay a visit to someone given this important and imminent sign of an intention to engage in criminal activity. It also requires our federal Department of Justice to publish an annual report with statistics about its prosecution of background check denial cases so that we here in Congress and folks around the country can better enforce our existing gun laws. What I hear time and time again in town halls back home in Delaware is folks want us to enforce our existing gun laws more thoroughly and more wisely, and that's exactly what this proposal would do. In Delaware, I've met with and heard from law enforcement leaders up and down our state, the chiefs of police from our State police, our county police, our municipal police have uniformly said they would welcome this information, that if someone in their town, in their county, or in our state is a convicted felon trying to get their hands on a gun, they'd like to know that. And here in the Senate, Chairman Lindsey Graham of the Senate Judiciary Committee at a hearing back in May said about this proposal, it is a, quote, painfully obvious bipartisan bill that we should take up and pass. And he's committed to me that he would like to see it pass committee. There's a lot of other senators who agree, not just Democrats like Senators Duckworth and Jones and Klobuchar, but friends from across the aisle, Senators Perdue and Rubio and Collins have also joined in co-sponsoring this, and I know there are other senators eager or willing to join in the days ahead. The Nix Denial Notification Act is exactly the sort of common sense, narrowly crafted bipartisan bill that would pass the Senate tomorrow if Leader McConnell would bring it to the floor for vote. Simply put, bills like this, and bills such as we discussed at that hearing on the Judiciary Committee, extreme risk protection orders that provide an appropriate way with due process protections for a demonstrably mentally ill individual who's threatening harm to others, to, for a brief period, have their guns removed from them. Or universal background checks, such as recently advanced, not recently, 6 months ago, advanced the House on a bipartisan basis. These sorts of proposals can help keep guns away from people who should not have them. It is clear to me from poll after poll, survey after survey, tragic story after tragic story, the American people want us to act, and they want us to act on background checks. We should vote on the Senate companion to H.R. 8. It is long past time for our leader, the majority leader, to join with the majority of the country and to put that bill on this Senate floor. Just last week, the House Judiciary Committee passed the Keep Americans Safe Act that would prohibit high-capacity magazines, which have been used in so many of these recent tragic mass shootings. If the leader brought this to the floor and it passed, that, along with all the other bills I've just referenced, would help save lives. Madam President, it is my hope that our president will see this moment as an opportunity for real leadership, to listen to the majority of Americans, the majority of Democrats, the majority of Republicans, the majority of gun owners, who would like to see us act in a responsible and bipartisan way to reduce the easy access criminals have to guns and take an important step forward in making our country, our schools, our communities, and our families safer. What I hear back home in Delaware is that the overwhelming majority of Americans are sick and tired of our thoughts and prayers after every shooting. And they would be so much more inspired if we actually took the risk of enacting legislation together. Madam President, I think it's long past time for us to do just that, and I hope we will in the days ahead. Thank you. And with that, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.